Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasure. My name's Jeff Pospisil, and in this video, what I want to do is I want to go over how would you actually pay your connectional funding, either by check or electronically for the Global Methodist denomination. So how would you actually do that? And I'm going to walk you through both methods, and hopefully it's a help to you. It doesn't cover so much how to calculate it. That's a separate video, and I can include a link to that as well. All right, let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so if your church is sending in your connectional funding with a check, what you should include is a remittance form. And this is a preview of what our updated remittance form will look like. And we had a great idea from the Florida conference, by the way. So instead of doing a separate sheet for the conference share as well as the general church share, because those go to two different places, we decided, or actually Florida invented to make the conference part the top half and the general church part the bottom half. And then all you got to do is cut it in half and send the right form to the right place with the right check. So I thought that was pretty brilliant. And the other thing that we did is we wanted this to be a generic form so we wouldn't have 15, 20 different versions of this with the different addresses. By the way, you could tell this is not the correct address, 123 Salvation Lane. Wouldn't that be a cool address? Anyway, so this is not finished, obviously, but what it'll look like eventually is you will choose your conference from the drop down. And I chose Upper Midwest, which I do have populated correctly. And I'll give you the phone number and the email address, as well as the website. Right down here is the website, as well as where to mail it to. That'll all be filled in. So I thought that was pretty slick. Janelle, my coworker, she's the one that cracked the code on that, figured out how to do that. So big thanks to Janelle and to Florida. So normally what you would do is you would enter in your church's name. You'd enter in who do I contact? If there happens to be a question about what this check is for whatever reason, that's what you'd include there. Church numbers are going out. Church number, it's just like a social security number. It just helps us accurately identify your church. So that way your church gets credit. There's just, with 4,000 plus churches, that is a challenge to properly identify some churches. And then the phone number or email, the best place to contact somebody. One of the things that we ask you to do too is check which months this remittance is for. A number of churches, they'll pay once a month. So this would change every month. Some of them go ahead and pay quarterly. Some of them pay for the whole entire year. And either way is acceptable, by the way. But one of the things what we ask for is the months. That way, let's just say, for example, that your church decides you're done being Global Methodist. This was the wrong choice. You disagree with the direction of the Global Methodist Church, but you paid for connectional funding for the whole year. And if you decided to leave at the end of June, we would have record and be able to say, okay, you paid through the month of June, so we need to refund you 6 months worth of connectional funding. So we just want to respect church's decision to join us, but also to decide to leave as well. So let's just say, for example, First Church, they had an ID number of 1234, and they didn't put anything here. But anyway, let's say they decided to send the whole year's worth of connectional funding. By the way, if you don't know your conference's percentage, that's not on here. You should really contact your conference. So that's also why we put the contact information up there. We also included a line in case you give for something else. So sometimes, like when we had those disasters, the Maui disasters or the tornadoes or many of the other things that come up, sometimes there's a special offering within your conference that you would want to include. So we did include a line here. So if there was a special offering, you could write special offering and how much was given for that. All right. And then you get to the general church part, and that percentage is 1% calculated on last year's operating income. And if you filled out the top, by the way, that also carries over to here. So that's just copied over. the months you remit for, that might be different. So we didn't make those carry over automatically. And then because the percentages might be different, we also, well, let's just say you did 6 months here. So that might be how this works. All right. Yeah. And you would print this out and you can go ahead and mail it. And it wouldn't even be a bad thing to go ahead and leave these blank. So if you were going to do this once a month or once a quarter, let's say you were doing this once a quarter, print out 4 copies of this and then just check them as you go. And then you can add other giving if you wanted to and just update that. But that's no problem if that's handwritten over. Or if you did this whole thing handwritten, that would also be fine. So you might, if you're doing this monthly, you might just print it off, 12 copies, and handwrite it in each time. Whatever works for you. So if your church decides to start giving online and you save a stamp, you save a check, you save a little bit of effort, a lot of our conferences have done some great work. Most of our conferences have done really great work about making this super easy, super convenient. And so I'm going to show you 2 different conferences as well as the general church one. And I'm going to start off with the Mid-South because they're the ones that I think feels like to me they pioneered the most common way for using Realm as their connectional funding or their giving platform. And so under most of your conferences websites, you're going to see something like this, either resources or it might even just be right up here where it says give. Was that right up on the, yep. So I could have went right there as well. So either way, it gets me to the same place if I go through resources and connectional funding or if I hit give. You're going to see a place to go to the online giving, and that's going to be a separate website. Or if you do want to pay in check, you can go ahead and do that. And there's all the good contact information as well, and a connectional funding form. So that's the remittance form. And I believe they have their own version of that. I'm going to double check here. You could either use that form or you could use our form, either way, but they do have also something to help you calculate your share. And this will give you also the percentage that they're asking. So really good stuff. They've done a really nice job. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and where am I at? I'm going to click on online giving. And like I said, I think Mid-South was the first conference to start using Realm. And you could tell it says up here on Realm. So they kicked you to the Realm website. And you can say how much you want to give. I'm just going to put in $500. You could select what you want to give for. So just like our remittance form, if there was something else you wanted to give for, you could go ahead and add that. You can add another fund right here. You could do this every single month, go to the website and do that. Or what I would prefer, I mean, if it was me as the treasurer, I would say, I want to give every month. And I want to give, let's go ahead and if I was setting this up for January, I would say, let's go ahead and start on January 15th. And I want to end on December 15th. Or I could say 16th because the 15th was a Sunday. So then I could go ahead and it'll do that automatically. I would put in my email address. So I'm going to put in my Gmail one. And now it's going to, every month, I believe on the 15th, it'll go ahead and pay, if it was $500 or whatever it was. If it's probably, it's not going to be a round amount. It's going to be like 78.65 or something like that. And they'll tell you the total here too. Isn't that slick? They're going to say, hey, it's going to be 12 gifts. The total is going to be $943.80. So I really like this product. So I'm going to go ahead and say, if you want to use a bank account, that's what I would encourage you to use the bank account because it's going to be cheaper. And yeah, that's what I encourage you to do. So you'd include your banking information, your billing name. So this is going to be the church name. billing address, billing city, state, zip, and then you're going to go ahead and hit give. So super slick, super easy. Yeah, they have done a marvelous job. For my next conference, I'm going to show you Upper Midwest. And the reason I'm using them, while many are following Mid-South's example and using Realm, there's also some that are just using something else. And while the Realm can be designed for denominational bodies, most of them you kind of got to force it to work for you. And so that's why I'm using this one. So for Upper Midwest, if you look at it, first of all, you check resources, it's not there. So then you check give, and this is where you go. And you can see if you wanted to do a mailing, that information's there, as well as the remittance form that you can download and fill out. But then there's also this online giving. And the Upper Midwest, they use Planning Center. And you can tell up here, I think, is where it says Church Center. That's Planning Center. So a number of them use something like that. And so again, if I was a church that was giving a monthly amount, oops, I don't use Edge that often. And sometimes that causes problems. So you would want to go ahead and use your drop-down form, choose Connectional Funding, and it'll give you the hint right here. It's 1% operational income or 2% beginning in 2024. If you had other gifts to give, you can do that. And so you could do this every month if you wanted to, or you could go ahead and set it up. And some of these, this is one that's not quite as friendly as Realm, by the way. So I don't have as many options here. I can't give quarterly, for example, but I can give monthly. And I can choose what date I want to start on. And I can go ahead and choose January would be my starting date. One of the things that you're going to notice is I don't have an end date. And some of these aren't going to have an end date. So you're going to have to remember your login. They're going to make you set up a login. So if I wanted to do one, I'm going to use my old high school email address. And they're going to want to start setting me up with a login. And they're going to make me verify that I'm not somebody else. But they're going to also make you verify your bank account. Anyway, can be kind of a pain, but you got to do it once. You got to write down your login. I'm going to go ahead and quit this. I'm just going to go back, but it is very similar, but you got to force it. One of the things too that I would say is I wouldn't actually want to use my name here. I would want to use the church's name if I could. So again, if I'm First Methodist, and I'd probably put church here. And that's how I would end up doing it, is my first name would be the normal identifier for your church, and then putting church or something like that in the back for the last name. Last and certainly not least is the general church share. And we recently added the option for churches to give online their connectional funding. And you can find that under, I should have highlighted that, the menu, give, connectional funding. I also want to just point out too, if you're having troubles finding your church's website address, I know I've done this where I'll type in something like Mid-Texas GMC, and you type in Mid-Texas GMC. What do you get? You get probably a fair number of car dealerships as well as the websites that you want. I've been to this website enough that it pops up automatically, but a lot of them, you get a lot of car dealerships too. So if you're having troubles finding your conference's website address, here it is. But let's go to Connectional Funding. And we still have a little bit of work to do on this. We know it's not 100% perfect yet. And probably the biggest drawback is the recurring payments are not an option for ACH payments. That means and that's the way we prefer people to do it, is we prefer people to give electronically through their bank account because it reduces the fees by so much. So if you were to click monthly, there is no option to give with a bank account. But if you say one time only, then there is that option to use a bank account. So that is the cruddy part. So let's go ahead, and this one you do 7856 again. You would select your months, and it could be several months. Put your name, your church's name, your email address, because that's who we want to contact, and then the mailing address for wherever you want things mailed to the church for financial purposes. And then you would go ahead and do your banking information. You could select no for fees if you don't want to cover the fees. That's fine, especially if you choose that ACH, because you made it a whole lot cheaper. And it even says select no because the fees are so much cheaper. And then you would go ahead and hit submit. Once you get everything filled in, it's going to say I don't have all my stuff filled in. But yeah, this one's pretty easy. Again, I do regret that we don't have the monthly recurring or the quarterly recurring ACH all the way set up. So hopefully that'll be fixed soon. All right, that brings us to the end. And I'm going to guess that there is more than a handful of you that are watching the video that during this time you thought, oh man, I don't think my church has been paying Connectional Funding, and I didn't even know we were supposed to, and why didn't I get a bill and all that other kind of stuff. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not alone. First of all, there are a lot of churches. There's a lot of chaos in this season. This is December of 2024. There's over 4,000 Global Methodist churches that have joined recently, and we're struggling as a denomination. Churches are struggling to recover financially from leaving the United Methodist denomination. They're struggling to figure out how everything works in the Global Methodist decision. And so what I'm going to encourage you is, if you've been a Global Methodist church for, several months now, not to look back and say, oh man, we owe Connectional Funding for the whole last year. If the Lord moves you, the Holy Spirit moves you to do that, do that. But if the Holy Spirit's not nudging you to do that, what I would say is I would just start being faithful this next month. So if you're watching this December 2023, January, let's start giving to Connectional Funding faithfully from this moment on. And, we would be more than happy with that as leaders. And we would just be happy and blessed to have you on board. We are trying to do our best to encourage people and educate people and work through this together. All right. Till next time, God bless you.